Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'll be showing you how to replace the brake pads on your motorcycle. Your motorcycle's brakes are one of the most crucial systems in your bike, especially sa motor na ganito. This is our 2014 Z1000. And ang gagawin natin today is we'll be replacing all the brake pads, the two sets at the front and the one set at the rear. And I want you to stay tuned because there is something in this bike that I would like to show you, and I would like every motorcycle rider, especially those using big bikes, to avoid. Now, the tools that we'll be needing is very simple. We'll be needing a 12mm socket with a ratchet. We'll be needing an Allen set. So we have either an Allen key. You could also opt for this type. We also have these types of Allens, or we can go for the better ones, which I do recommend because in a future video we'll be using these type of Allens. So these are 1/2 drives. These are universal. Basically, you have an adapter for a 3/8 and a 1/2, and these are their standard Allen keys. You'll also be needing something to press the brakes, so you can use these type of brake press for the front because these are opposing piston brake calipers, or you could also use a C-clamp for your floating calipers, what we'll be using at the rear. But if you don't have any of these, a basic screwdriver, a big screwdriver like this will also do the job. And we'll also be needing a pair of long nose pliers or cutter pliers like these, because we'll be removing some pins to be able to get the brake pads. And for those stubborn bolts, you might need a hammer, but this is depending on the situation of your motorcycle. Now, the types of brake pads that we'll be using today are these L-leg sintered brake pads. Why are we using sintered? Because sintered brake pads have a lot of benefits compared to their counterparts, which is the organic and the semi-metallic. Number one, these L-leg brake pads have a longer service interval. So, mas matagal ang buhay nila. They wear a lot less than the organic brake pads. So, you could use this long time. So, for value for money, even though they are the most expensive among the three categories, I feel na yung pinakasulit or value for money is these types of brake pads. They also are less susceptible to brake fade. So even if you are going on a track or you use a lot of hard braking, these brake pads will make sure that you always stop. And so the downside to these brake pads, however, is they're a lot harsher on your rotors. And of course, the price. They are the most expensive among, I think a set of these will cost you around two plus thousand, which when you're talking about the maintenance of your big bike, it's not really that expensive. So I would recommend that everyone use sintered brake pads on your motorcycle. Another plus side that I might add is mas maganda yung brake feel niya. Yung initial bite ng brake pads is mas makapit compared to yung mga ibang compared sa mga organic, kasi organic brake pads are softer, so mas pag ginamit nyo yung preno, hindi siya agad-agad kumagat. So we have our tools, we have our brake pads. Now let's start working on our motorcycle. So before natin tanggalin ang ating brake caliper, meron tayong dalawang brake pin holder dito na kailangan natin luwagan para pag tinanggal natin yung buong brake pad, hindi na tayo mahirapan luwagan to. Now, itong dalawa, be very careful. Sometimes kasi they can be very stuck and there's a high chance na mabibilog yung tornilyo na to. Actually, yung kabilang side nga, meron na kaming nabilog dyan dahil the previous mechanic, sobrang tigas ang pagkalagay and literally hindi mo siya ma-remove. Pero if dumating sa point nga na hindi mo matanggal ang mga brake pins na to, you could actually drill a hole and i-hand tap mo siya patanggal and you can just order a new set. Pero if medyo matigas siya, what you can do is you can get yung ganitong Allen na socket, tapos you can get a hammer, tapos just i-shock nyo na ng konti yung bolts para lumuwag siya. Yan. Tapos, ang gagawin nyo lang is you're going to get para sa case natin dito, this is a 10mm socket. So, you can get a 10mm socket. Yan. Tapos, luwagan nyo. Now, you don't need to remove this all the way. Basta lumuwag lang siya, okay na. Pwede mo na tanggalin to. Yan. Pero, pag malambot naman yung allen na to, usually pwede mo gamitin na allen key lang para luwagan siya. Yan. So, huwag nyo siya tanggalin all the way. Basta alam natin na maluwag na yung dalawa na yan. Ang next na gagawin natin is kukunin natin ang ating 12mm socket at luluwagan natin yung dalawang bolts na humahawak sa preno. So, si Edward yung kasama ko ang gagawa ng kabilang side naman ng preno natin para mabilis kasi it's the same process on both sides. So once you've removed the two bolts, pwede mo nang dahan-dahan i-wiggle yung caliper off the rotor. If matigas, you can lightly tap it with the hammer para matanggal siya. And yan. So once you've removed the caliper, gagawin nyo is you get your allen and remove the two allen pins holding it in place. So para hindi kayo mahirapan tanggalin to, what you do is the two brake pads at the bottom, you push it upward to relieve the pressure and you pull the pin out. So ngayon natanggalan natin yung two pins, the brake pads should slide off. So don't forget na do not lose these shims. These are very important. You will be reusing this brake pads natin na bago. So pag-usapan natin itong mga brake pads na to. Now, pag nakita mo siya, it actually says yung Tokiko, which is actually the original brake pads for our Kawasaki. Pero, if you look closely at the brake material, mapapansin mo na parang may mga pula-pula sa dulo. Tapos, it's very shiny. Now, itong mga brake pads na to, yung in-inspection namin, lalo na nakita nyo ito, yan. These are actually, tawag natin, this is bonded, yung mga bonding na mga brake pads. This is similar sa mga nakikita mo na ginagawa sa mga preno na mga truck. Yan. So, these ones, ang ginagawa lang nila is gumukuha sila ng adhesive. Tinuubos sila yung material na brake pad para matitira ka with the base plate. Then they just put an adhesive and itong friction material, dinidikit nila to. Now, this is not a good brake pad to use, especially for a bike this powerful. Kasi, depending on the material na to, hindi natin sure kung if they can kumbaga if they are less susceptible to brake fade. Malay mo konting init lang you will start to feel brake fade na on a motorcycle this powerful. It's very dangerous, especially kung mabilis ang takbo nyo. So never ever use bonded brake pads. Always buy a new set of sintered brake pads or even yung organic. Just buy brand new. Never wag yung papabanding to. This is a cheap fix. But this is not the correct way of replacing brake pads on your motorcycle. So we'll throw these away and we'll put the new Elig brake pads in. So if you see these two slots, these are actually where the pins slot in. So your pins are the one holding your brake pads in place dito sa caliper. So what we'll do is we'll put back yung shims na tinanggal natin kanina. And then, if yung brake calipers mo ay nakaluwa, kumbaga if the brake calipers nakalabas na, let's say you've been using it for a few kilometers, medyo manipis na, what you can do is you can put the old brake pads, not the new ones, the old ones, you can put them in their place. And what you can do is either you're going to use a press like this, pero sa case natin, hindi to kakasya dito. So that's why we have yung ating screwdriver. So what you'll do is you'll put the screwdriver in between the two brake pads, tapos you'll pry it up and down. And what this does, it pushes the brake pistons back para magkaroon ka ng space to put your new thick brake pads on. So now na naatras natin siya, we'll slide in the new brake pads. This is one. This is the other. So itong piston set ng caliper setup ng ating Z1000 is a 4 piston. Bali tas 1, 2, 3 and 4 pistons. So malakas ang preno nito kasi it is a powerful bike. So once you've put them here, before we put the pins back, I forgot to mention kanina, is get a little grease, tapos grease the pins so that the brake pads can move freely when you operate them. If these are stuck up, most likely medyo mafe-feel nyo na matigas ang inyong brake lever pag pumipreno kayo. So put a little grease before we slide them back in. So now nag-greased up na siya. We'll get our caliper. We'll press them until makita nyo yung lumapat yung, kumbaga all the holes are in line. Then you'll just slide the pins in. That's one. That's two. Tapos tighten them. Now we don't need to tighten them all the way just now. Basta we just need to get them started up para nakapasok siya sa guide. Yan. So we got them started up, and what we'll do is line them up with the rotor. Tapos just put them in. There's a dowel guide for both sides, so make sure pasok siya sa dowel. Yan. And then we'll just get their two 12mm bolts and bolt them in. Now, it's very important pag ginawa nyo itong brake pads na to, you do them one side at a time. Para when you push one side of the brake pads all the way, when you put in your caliper with your new brake pads, ibombahin nyo muna yung brake lever sa taas so hindi mag-overflow yung brake fluid reservoir nyo. Kasi as you push the pistons back, the fluid in the brake lines goes up and pinupuno niya yung reservoir dun sa taas. So pag napalitan nyo na brake pads to, remember to give the, kumbaga bombahan nyo ilang beses yung brake lever. Sa mga hindi nakakaintindi ng sabi ng bomba, that means pump the lever a few times before proceeding to do the other side. So now we can tighten both 12 bolts. And now we can tighten the two guide pins in the middle. You don't need to tighten this yung all the way yung sobrang tigas. So if it's hard, if it starts to you feel it na tumitigas na, pwede mo na lang siya bigyan ng parang 1/8 of a turn just to lock it in place. Kasi if you over tighten this, you can also actually kaya nyo bilugin yung tornilyo. You can round off the bolt, and if you round off the bolt, then you have to remove everything again, and you're going to have to drill it and hand tap it. Just like I'll show you what it looks like. So there, now that we've put our calipers in, we'll just have to go up here and we'll pump the lever a few times. Tapos if it feels yan, pag tumitigas na siya, we're done with our front brakes. So now that we're done with the front, we'll move to the rear.